Other than that, be yourself, have fun. I'm a little bit hard of hearing, so if you have any questions, the visual indicator helps, or else yell at me at the top of your lungs, and I'll get it eventually.
Thank you, thank you.
So where's everybody from? Are you guys Oklahoman? No? You guys Texan? There's always a couple. Oh wow, I think you win for furthest away. I apologize for the bumping. It is a little bit windier out today than usual. I'm gonna bump one more time. This time it'll be on purpose, so it'll be a little bit gentler. That'll let me get a little bit closer to the center of the canal. Maybe catch some of the breeze coming off of Tipsy Tiki there. I think you guys win for traveled the furthest to be here today. What about you? Where are you from? Ohio. Oh, Ohio. You do have to appreciate the breeze today, though. It really cuts the heat, which makes a blessing. I'm from Oklahoma. I was born and raised here. There was a real small town right on Lake Texoma, real close to Texas, called Kingston. And in Kingston, there was one stoplight, 5 churches, and every time a couple of the older folks had an argument, a new church popped up. That said, there were also 6 liquor stores, so there was nothing to do with. So I came here. This is actually one of my favorite parts of Oklahoma City. These are actually some of the oldest buildings in the city. All of these buildings around here used to be warehouses. We really grew up around the train tracks there at the very end of the canal. That's the Santa Fe line. It was put in the early 1880s, and it is still used to ship goods all across the country, except we ship a lot more Amazon than we used to. The section of the canal we're on right now actually used to be California Avenue. And if you look up towards our right past this tree, underneath that middle section of windows, you can see an old address there, 19th East California.
Glorify the Lord.
And we are about to bump around on these tires a little bit because this is the shortest bridge on the entire canal. And it is so much nicer to bounce off of rubber than to have the bridge take our sunshade away from us. If you guys want a reference for how short this bridge actually is, I am 5'3". So it's a short bridge. And there at the end of the canal is the Devon Mosaic. This was done by the students of the Oklahoma City Community College. Took them about 3 years to finish, and it is probably the best collection of Oklahoma symbols on the entire canal. Over there on the left is our state animal, the bison. He's having a bit of a staring contest, our state game fowl, the turkey. All the fish there on the mosaic are white bass, and this tree with the pink leaves, that's actually my personal favorite tree. There were so many red buds around my grandma's house when I was growing up, I swear to you guys. The ground was pink for weeks every spring, which is a little bit impressive because that is the actual size the redbud tree gets. They're not very big at all. In fact, if you look back over towards the bridge, you see the tree that looks a bit like a sapling next to those evergreens? That is actually a full-grown redbud. They're just like that. These 3 native women are representative of our rich cultural history. And if you look in between the woman and there are actually 39 tribes residing in Oklahoma to this day. And if you look in between the woman in the green dress and the woman in the red dress, right at the top of that loop, you guys see that little bird there? That is a scissor-tailed flycatcher, which is our state bird. But if I am being totally honest with you guys, that is our state mascot. We will put that bird on anything. You guys might have seen Skydance Bridge on your way into Bricktown. It's over by Scissortail Park. It's the one with a huge metal structure on top, sort of a K shape. Yeah? Would you believe me if I told you that was supposed to be a scissor tail? It's very abstract. I'll point it out to you guys when we get to the other end of the canal so you can sort of see what I'm talking about. One of the few symbols of Oklahoma that is not on that mosaic, though, is our state vegetable. it's not what I thought it was. So I kind of want to see if you guys have any guesses for state vegetable. That was my guess.
Oh,
Honestly, I can't believe it's not okra. It should be, right? It is green on the outside like okra,
tengo que hicieron eso para que lo vayas arriba, no choque.
but it's red on the
Por eso no
inside.
lo fueron nada, por un lado.
Wait, what was that? Our state vegetable is the watermelon. I'm pretty sure. The justification is that the watermelon is a cousin of the gourd family, but honestly, I think it's just that state fruit was already taken by strawberry. And we actually produce around $7 million worth of watermelon every year, so we had to honor it somehow. It's actually a town pretty close to here called Rush Springs. They hold a watermelon festival every year, and last year they broke the record for largest watermelon grown in Oklahoma. It was 268 pounds. I found out recently they named this watermelon. They named this record-breaking watermelon Dump Truck Donna, which is the best name I can think of for a vegetable. So our journey here in Bricktown from Warehouse District to Entertainment District actually started in the 70s with the development of the interstate system. Once we started shipping things by truck, we didn't really need to ship it by train anymore. So all these warehouses started to empty out. The wind is pushing us again, so a bit of a fair warning, I might bump. When something empties out, it's got to fill up with something else. And the thing that downtown Oklahoma City filled up with was crime. By the 80s, we're going to bump again. By the 80s, crime was pretty high. It was not what you wanted the downtown of your capital city to look like. So city leaders got together, came up with a plan. And this plan was the Metropolitan Area Project, or MAPS. MAPS is a 1% tax on all goods sold within Oklahoma City, and within 5 years of being introduced, it had raised right around $350 billion, completely debt-free. We did 9 projects with that originally, and the first to be completed is actually right across the street there. The Bricktown Ballpark was opened in 1998. And when it was opened, it was voted by ESPN as the most beautiful AAA ballpark in the United States. But I will admit, we did also have a secret advantage. We were also the newest AAA ballpark in the United States. I also want to point out right next to us is the former Miller-Jackson Company. This is actually the oldest building on the entire canal. It was opened in 1904, making it 121 years old this year. It used to serve the general stores in the area. It is actually under management by the same family who opened it, the Miller store. And it was only in the year 2000 that they began adding more businesses to it. And one of the fun things about that being the oldest building on the canal is that right next to it, we put the newest building on the canal. Brickopolis was opened in 2015, and Brickopolis has laser tag! Brickopolis has an arcade. It is truly fun for the whole family, though. It's the closest place to get a pretty good burger. It's the closest place for the adults to get a pretty good beverage. But most importantly of all, Brickopolis has the closest
Señores, estamos en Oklahoma.
bathroom, which is really important when you work right here. The canal itself is also one of the original MAPS projects. It was opened in 1999, which is the same year I was born. It's, you know, pretty good year for some pretty cool things. You want to tuck in for just a moment, though, because when they were building this canal, they had no idea how wide the boats were going to be. You want to tuck your arm in. This is the Wanda Jackson Bridge, but we like to call it the Wish Bridge because we genuinely wish it was wider. This boat is 8 feet wide. The gap I'm pushing us through right now is 8 feet and 6 inches. So I went slow enough to get pushed back into this wall. So we're going to pivot off here right next to these black-eyed Susans, and then I'm going to talk, and that'll give us a better view of the Oklahoma City Centennial Postcard Transportation Mural. This was done by Dr. Bob Palmer and 4 of his students from the University of Central Oklahoma. And this one actually only took them 3 days. They set up a projector right there on this hill and they traced what Dr. Bob Palmer had already designed. And right there in the middle is a depiction of Automobile Alley. Developed in the 1920s, Automobile Alley was actually known for having over 50 auto dealerships all in one place, most of which sold the Ford Model T. We actually had one of the earliest Ford factories here in Oklahoma. Nowadays, it's a lot more diverse. There's a lot of locally owned boutiques, so it is great for souvenirs. And if you want to visit me, you don't want to drive, you catch a streetcar right there in the corner by Johnny Venture Plaza. We are now entering Echo Bridge, which I'm always excited about because this is the only place on the entire canal where I don't need a microphone. So you guys want to yell a little bit? No. Echo!
Oh, great. Tiene mucha energía, hermano. Señores, nos encontramos en Oklahoma City en un paseo hermoso.
And we are now in Lower Bricktown, which is all the new stuff. And if you guys are curious as to what you look like on a boat, we are passing the dashing Captain Daniel.
God bless you, brother.
I think our horn's louder.
Así como un bar ahí, ¿verdad?
So Lower Bricktown is all the new stuff. The oldest building in Lower Bricktown was built in 2003, and I just told you guys that this canal was open in 1999, so none of this was here. We actually used to call this the Imagination Tour because we'd come out from under Echo Bridge, and I'd look at you guys fully in the face right and I'd say, okay guys, now imagine there's going to be a building. Well, now there is. We're passing by the Harkins Theater right now, and in my opinion, the Harkins is one of the best examples of the transformative nature of Oklahoma City, because where this building is now used to be a landfill. And we got it all cleaned up. It looks great. It smells great. But they do say that that's why the popcorn tastes funny to this day.
Un poquito de sí, no hay problema.
Which is, of course, a joke. You know, I never actually slander the Harkins. I put way too much butter on my popcorn to know what it tastes like. Speaking of slightly greasy food, do you guys like Sonic, the restaurant?
Yes.
Sonic is actually an Oklahoma original company.
Oh, that's great.
The very first Sonic was technically in Shawnee, Oklahoma. It started as a steakhouse called Tom Hat's. But Shawnee is a college town, and college students don't usually have steakhouse money. So in summer, they opened a hot dog stand in the parking lot, and they sold hot dogs, root beer, slushes. It was Sonic, and it did so well, fully outperformed that steakhouse, so we stuck with that idea. The first real Sonic was in Stillwater, Oklahoma. That's where we got our push button. Service at the speed of sound. And when you approach the speed of sound, you get a Sonic boom. It's been a pun the whole time. We've been had by a dad joke from the 50s.
Ahí está la familia. Dile adiós, díganle adiós a la
I bring it
familia.
up because we are actually passing by the former Sonic headquarters right now. It's on the water's edge, which is a bit on the nose, you know? Like, I know the canal's right here. There's actually 3 million, yeah, this one right here. There's actually about 3 million gallons of water in the canal. And I'll be honest, this is actually kind of bittersweet for me because, you know, Sonic was my very first job. I was 15 and a half, and I thought I was so grown up. I wasn't. And they actually fired me for being too quiet. Look at me now! Oh, Sonic! Honestly, I feel like I won. I outlasted them. On the other side here, we have Toby Keats, I Heart This Bar and Grill. You guys country music fans? We have quite a few country music artists coming out of Oklahoma. Toby Keats himself was raised in Moore. This is actually his flagship restaurant. If you notice that curve along the side of the building, it's because when viewed from above, the whole thing's actually shaped like a guitar. And So a good rule of thumb is that this is an incredibly competitive area, so if it's on the canal, it's good food. That said, I have an anecdote.
Qué bonita esa flor allá, mami.
You said you like country music, so I want to share a little bit of gossip that I've heard. I've heard that since it's passed, Ruby Keith is not as good as it once was, but it is as good once as it ever was. And one time I got the second half of that joke out too late, and my entire boat mutinied. I'm dead serious. So that tells you how good that restaurant really is. So you guys remember how deep the canal is? Exactly. It is 4 feet deep along the entire canal, except for right here. Where it gets wide right here, it actually goes down to 8 feet deep because this is where we drain the canal once every 5 years. So you really don't want to drop anything. But don't worry if you do. I have been trained in all of the proper protocols. If anything goes overboard at any point in the tour, I will ask you guys to raise your hand. And then I will raise my hand. And then we will wave goodbye to your stuff together. Because I'm not jumping in there. I know. Oh, we get loads of stuff. I'll give you a couple items now, but I also want to tell you a couple items later because you can see one of them from the canal. So you can see Bass Pro up there, right? Uh-huh. We get a lot of their shopping carts. In front of Bourbon Street, we get a lot of their chairs. They're the only dining directly on the canal. They're Cajun food. They're actually really good. But we pull out a lot of their chairs with grappling hooks. And we find a lot of women's shoes right outside of Coyote Uglies. And I'm going to tell you a little more on the way back because I left off some of my favorite items we pulled out of the canal. But I do want to talk about this area up ahead. This is Chickasaw Plaza. And at the center of Chickasaw Plaza, you can see a traditional Chickasaw warrior. He was sculpted by Enoch Kelly Haney, who was the first Native American man to be elected into our state legislature. He is also chief of the Seminole tribe until 2009. And if you guys visit our Capitol building, you can see at the top of the dome the Guardian statue. That one was also sculpted by Enoch Kelly Haney. It's about 20 feet tall. This guy's a little bit close to life. But it's these 10 stone tablets that surround the Chickasaw warrior that are the real heart of the plaza. They tell the history of the Chickasaw people and also of their land loss. When Andrew Jackson signed the 1830 Indian Removal Act, it displaced around 60,000 people from all along the Mississippi River Basin. Some came from as far as North Carolina or Florida and had to walk around 1,200 miles, often in the winter, often in the harshest conditions, and it did often end in death. To this day, it is still known as the Trail of Tears. But famously, the native peoples were told that once they arrived in what was then known as Indian Territory, they'll be allowed to stay for as long as the wind blows, the grass grows, and the water flows. And we kept that promise for about 50 years. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a second. But if you look up along the underside of this bridge and along the edge of the next bridge, you're going to see a bunch of barn swallow nests. It's a little bit warm in the day for them to be flying around, but you come back a little bit later in the evening, you'll see a bunch of barn swallows. They're my favorite birds, so I have to point them out. They're neat. So following the Civil War, for a variety of complicated reasons, the Creek and Seminole tribes ceded a portion of their land right in the heart of Indian Territory. These became known as the unassigned lands, and the surrounding states wanted in. So they began petitioning the government to open up the unassigned lands for settlement. And because they were booming out of their borders, and the voices were booming out to the government, they became known as the Boomers. When the railroads got involved, it led to 5 land runs, the first of which occurred on April 22nd, 1889, and that is truly the reason the Oklahoma City exists. Because that morning, there were exactly 7 people. It was the mailman and his family. But by the end of the day, 6 p.m., there were over 10,000 of us. We are the city that was built in a day, and in my opinion, that does make us cooler than Rome. There are actually like 50,000 people that morning from all across the world, each trying to get one of only 12,000 potential plots of land. If you managed to get one, it was a $14 registration fee, which comes out to about $430, $460 in today's money. And you would get 160 acres. They had to be the first to get here, so everybody was trying to get ahead. There was actually a soldier who had been stationed here for so long that he built a house, put it on wheels, quit his job, and just rolled out. There's also this French guy who showed up in a hot air balloon, spent the entire morning circling the unassigned land. Feels like a bit of a gray spot in the rules, because when he found where he wanted to be, all he had to do was hover above it. When that starting cannon went off at high noon, he just landed, which kind of feels like cheating, especially since most people came, as you see them here, on horses and wagons. You can actually see Skydance Bridge from here. If you look on the far right, it's those white spikes on the horizon. That's supposed to be a pretty bird, catcher. But I also want to point out a couple of statues here. For example, this guy who lost his hat. Behind that wagon, there's a horse doing a little bit of a front flip. He's actually tripping over some of the items that come bursting out of the back of that wagon due to the rough terrain. Behind that horse, there's a woman holding her baby. And the dog right in front of the horse, right next to that wagon wheel, that is actually the second smallest statue in the monument. It is 600 pounds. This is very specifically the 1889 Landmark Monument. That's something that was important to artists to tell more. The 1889 Landmark is the only one that did not break any treaties. So it's the only one that he wanted to honor with his work. And it is some truly incredible work. He really managed to capture one of the most chaotic moments in our state's history. World's largest horse race combined with a high-stakes game of capture the flag. You can see several people over here clutching their flags because that is what you would use to secure a plot of land if you found it empty. And that is a really big if. Because no matter how fast you were, no matter how hard you tried, you would soon realize that you were not the first to get some land. Up ahead of us, we've got a gentleman who snuck in. Maybe days, maybe weeks before that starting cannon went off. He had to come in under the cover of darkness, and he couldn't light a fire or else he'd be caught. So he was originally known as a moonlighter. But in modern day, we call this gentleman a sooner because he got here a little bit sooner than he was supposed to. Most of the Sooners were just trying to blend into that initial chaos. They began running their horses in circles to make them look hot, sweaty, and tired. And like they've just participated in a giant horse race. There's even one guy used a bar of soap, rubbed it along his horse's face to make it look like makeup. The monument itself is also very remarkable. There's actually 45 statues here. Each is size and a half. I can put that into perspective for you. I can tell you how tall you would be in the monument if you tell me how tall you are right now. Do I have any volunteers? 5'7". If you were in this monument, you would be just above 8 feet tall. I'm 5'3". If I were in this monument, I could finally reach the top shelf. This is actually the largest collection of bronze in the United States. And it took Paul Moore about 20 years to finish it, which is roughly a third of his current lifetime. So he put a lot of his life into it. And you see this guy who's tipping his hat? He's actually tipping his hat towards Paul Moore's father. As we round the bend, the woman riding side saddle is his mother. And this gentleman here on the buckboard wagon, well, that is Paul Moore himself. This is actually the most photographed spot on the